Hey guys, today we talked about security and more specifically about personal risk and security hygiene, right? Things that anyone can do to mitigate their own risk and the risk of the company. And this is definitely to raise some awareness. And I had two guests today. They were amazing. Jeroen Willemsen and Nanne Baars. Enjoy.
Beyond Coding. Welcome to Beyond Coding, a dive into the world of successful people in IT. From your sponsors, Zebia, creating digital leaders. Here's your host, Patrick Akil.
Hey guys, how are you? This is the first time doing actually a three-way recording. I don't think that's a good term to put it, but they're recording with three people on the podcast. So let me ask you first, Jeroen, how's it going?
Pretty well. Pretty excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Awesome, man. Thanks for coming. And Nanne?
Yeah.
Happy to have you.
Yeah. Happy to be here.
How's it going?
Yeah. I'm doing good.
Nice. Awesome. So I invited you both to talk about security, but it's a very broad topic, right? To me, it's very vague. And I think it's personally kind of hard to explain some things on the concept there. So could you guys explain it initially small, right? What can I do as a person in an organization or as a developer even with personal hygiene and the risk I'm having within my laptop, for example?
Yeah, let's kick off on that topic.
Yeah.
So, security is, you always get the funny question, are we secure right now? And the answer is you're never secure, but are you at the level that it's okay that you're no longer afraid of something going wrong?
Yeah.
As in, is the real risk gone, or is it towards your risk appetite? That's a lot of technical terms from security people, but it basically boils down to, are you comfortable with what you're doing in terms of the problems that might arise from what you're doing?
Yeah.
For instance, if you're working on a new project and you're really afraid that somebody else might take that over, personal hygiene might start with, let's not make sure that this is on a cinema screen when you're developing it, but on a computer screen and somewhere in your room instead of in the middle of the train, of a crowded train where somebody else is looking into that.
Yeah.
So that you're comfortable with what you're doing. And more importantly, for instance, if you're developing as a developer, for instance, if you're developing for some client or customer and you're trying to do your job over there and that customer is paying you for protecting that IP, then of course the level goes a bit higher. That means that it might be very important because you're creating something that's going to run their production systems, that you might want to up the level and start thinking about, hey, is my laptop up to date? Which might go from, I know I love Windows XP, everybody loves Windows XP, but if you're a Windows developer, you might want to join the train in Windows 10 and have it patched. So it's all about, first, what are you doing, how important that is, and what's then required to make sure you don't get into trouble.
Yeah.
Now the hard part, of course, in this whole story is you might be comfortable very soon, but the one you're developing for might not be.
Exactly.
Take again a customer, let's say that we work for a bank and we try to, because that's the typical easy use case, right?
Yeah.
Everybody understands that, if you're developing something for a core banking system, you don't want that to be changed in a way that somebody else gets 50 cents for every transaction, for instance. That you don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Then it becomes very important that you start thinking about hardening your laptop properly. And that hardening can be the hard part. Sorry, pun intended. Because where do you start? What's the setting for your operating system to fix this?
Yeah.
And for that, luckily, you can find a lot of hardening guides on the internet. Just start Googling, and maybe we can even put something with this podcast. I'm not sure if there's links involved or something.
Yeah.
And then you can have a bunch of tools. They can tell you like, hey, your laptop has the following problems. Please fix those.
Okay.
And depending on the problems that tool tells you, you might want to do something or not.
Yeah.
Easy win, for instance, make sure that your computer automatically gets locked, for instance, when you're leaving the keyboard or whatever.
Yeah, that's the fun part to do when the developer leaves his laptop or the laptop open, flip his screen and stuff like that. And sometimes people do that for just to make a point to the person coming back, or you can switch the screen and then it's upside down and stuff like that. That's a funny thing where you start off with making people aware that you have to really be, when you can't leave your laptop behind.
Yeah.
So I'm also we go to conferences a lot, and we go to developer conferences, and we go to security conferences, and on security conferences nobody leaves his laptop behind.
Yeah.
So when they are in line for getting some food, people have the laptop on their back, so they have it always with them. And developer conferences, everybody just leaves his laptop wherever they want and just go and have some dinner and come back. Oh, it's still there. And I'm just like, I'm amazed by how that works. And that's a really difference in how people think about, hey, this is my laptop. I have some stuff on it for a customer. And I can understand that in the security environment, it's more security related information on it. That could be the case. But as a developer, you also have the source code of the company on your laptop. Yeah. And that's important to protect as well. And to have that secure so you don't really leave it behind unattended. That's,
Exactly. Even when it's turned off, especially MacBooks, by the way, with the whole funny USB 3 drive-by thing, keep it with you. It's silly, but keep it with you, or keep it at least inside. My laptop is right now somewhere in the studio while we're recording. I know where it is, and I know that we're 3 of us here, nobody else is here, and I'm comfortable with that. Yeah. But I wouldn't leave it somewhere else in the building, because although it's our building, there's still visitors. There's still, you can easily use a rubber ducky or whatever, insert and go. So in that sense, if you have something important on your laptop, keep it with you. If you don't need that important stuff on the laptop, throw it off. Yeah. It's actually that simple. The less stuff that's in there, the less you have to worry about to protect it. Yeah. Of course. So it starts with that, patching, keeping it close to you in public areas. Make sure that, luckily now with the whole working from home thing, that changed tremendously. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is that your cat or your dog starts pushing the keyboard. I think you'll survive. Yeah, exactly. If it starts chewing on your laptop, you might want to get a different brand though. But, it's workable. That's all right. I mean, that works. But start with that, keeping it close to you, keeping it up to date, run one of those tools on top of it and see what happens. Yeah. And that's your laptop. On your laptop, you have systems like maybe your Outlook account, your personal email or whatever. And then stuff gets a bit more serious, because now all of a sudden that hygiene is no longer to your physical thing, but it's to your online thing. So online hygiene is also very important. I think there's lots of talks about that, so I don't want to go over everything that's out there. Yeah. But it starts with having a password manager, having lengthy passwords, making sure MFA is enabled on all of the stuff that you have. If you share some sort of account with somebody, make sure you know that somebody. Yeah. And if you don't have to share, please just don't. Exactly. It just makes stuff problematic. Yeah.
Or for the same. So to give an example with the email thing, if you have an email account, if you put it on your phone, make sure that the phone is like we at Xebia have a phone which is part of an MDA, so they can remotely wipe it and stuff like that. Yeah. But it wasn't. So some people just email and forward every email to their personal email address. Yeah. So because you go to a customer, you get an email account, you have your Outlook, and you think, oh, I have another email account. So, well, let's just forward it to my own calendar, or let's forward the email automatically to my own account. Yeah. Because that's easier for me. Of course, it's easier for you. But on the other hand, think about what you do, because the customer doesn't expect from you to forward that email. Yeah. It might be a PDF with important information, and somehow your password of your personal email account is not that protected that well, and it gets part of a leak, and then your all the email is part of a leak, and then you have to explain to the customer, or probably not you, but Xebia has to explain why that email ended up in your personal account. And exactly. That's just one thing I see that a lot, that people still do that. Also with calendars. So if you share something with Google, your personal Google account is for free. Yep. And of course, there's no such thing as a free service. So Google knows exactly what you're doing, and they probably know exactly if you just put your appointments, they know exactly who you are meeting, because they have the email addresses, because they are part of the calendar invite. So they know exactly what you are doing. So yeah, I find it amazing that people can just share all the info and forward it to their own calendar. That's not for me. It's not. I like to keep things separated. Yeah. So for me, I also have my own personal laptop. I have my side projects, which I do on a separate laptop. I don't use my Xebia laptop for that, and I know a lot of people think differently about it, but I like to keep it just separated, just for my, it's ease of mind. Yeah. Just to have two completely separated laptops, which I don't use it for anything else than working for my clients. Yeah.
Do you think it's because they're kind of lacking the awareness of, for example, an email leak could happen if I forward every email, or they don't know that, for example, Google knows which calendar invites are there and which people attend? Or is it just they're happy with it and they accept the risk?
I think it's also it's easy for you, right? Yeah. So if you just forward it, it's easy for you to have it in one place. And I can totally relate it, because having multiple it's a horrible thing to do. So that's
exactly.
It is.
And then you also have Slack and all the other tools, and those are also so that's I can understand. I think it's an easy easy way out. So that's why it happens. It's a lot of work to keep your laptop safe. That's one thing. I think it's just easy.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm wondering then, have you guys seen any downsides with this? For example, you already mentioned if you don't lock your laptop, developers might mess around with each other and flip their screens, or put like a wallpaper that makes it seem like it's loading forever or something like that. I've seen those. But with emails or just stuff beyond your laptop, for example, as well, have you guys seen it actually going wrong?
Yeah,
we see it going totally wrong. So right now I'm part of a security team. So I do full stack development, but right now I'm part of a security team doing security engineering, lots of other things, and then you get into incident response.
Yeah.
And one of our customers, basically, one of the sales guys, its socials got hacked, and then he was used as a vector, because then it was easy to install stuff on his machine, because he was clicking all the links trying to get out of that problem.
Yeah.
He clicked on something wrong, something got down onto his laptop, then the credentials got sniffed, then they got onto the Active Directory, and from there they moved ahead, and eventually they started to find out which roles were there, like the CFO, finance, etc. And all of a sudden there were emails in the name of the CFO to transfer money to a given odd company, but it looked very much okay, because they knew about the emails, because they just need to find a way in, and they go step by step. And the next step might take very long if everybody does a proper job.
Yeah.
What we often see is, although we all hope that everybody does a proper job, that's often not the case. And otherwise, face it, we wouldn't have a job either, right? That's how it works.
Good point.
So, stuff got messed up, and eventually the finance department found out. They pinged me in, and after a week of finding the trails, collaborating with companies that are professionalized in, looking at those type of evidence and stuff. We found out what happened, and it just started with not being diligent with your social accounts.
Yeah,
it could have been as email as well, for that matter. Could have been anything. So yeah, that's the hard part. Like Nanne was always saying, hardening your computer is hard, keeping track of your accounts and stuff is hard.
Yeah.
So the most important thing, I guess, is try to indeed, separate things out if you can, and don't have stuff in there that's not helping you.
Yeah.
Or helping your customer you're working for.
Yeah.
For instance, if you work with funny thing, if you're working with a microservice setup, for instance, and you have a lot of microservices and a lot of code in there, but you're really only aiming at 2 of those services to work at, and the rest you don't care for, you don't have responsibility for, why carrying around everything around in your laptop?
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting to have a look at it, but I believe GitLab and GitHub also have some UI to, scroll through that stuff if really required.
Yeah.
And if you really need it, you could always check out a project and have a look at it. But, think about, what do you really need? And of course, it sounds really silly, because the way I used to work is try to download everything I can, and then it's easy to search through stuff because I'm not sure where something is located.
Yeah.
But if you just focus on your responsibilities, the amount of value you might deliver, aka the amount of risk that you carry along, is getting much smaller.
Yeah.
And similar with your social accounts, I think if you make sure for your personal email that nothing is forwarded to it, and if you make sure nothing happens in terms of you don't forward company wisdoms or anything, like try to blog about something where your company is working at, although you shouldn't just yet.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't wait to click publish, but you still already have it on your social media. Let's not do that. You could also wait with writing that down before, your company's done with it.
Yeah.
So again, your socials have lesser value in that sense. Just think about what's the value in there. And then the more nastier topic, I think, is always the cell phone. Everybody likes Android. Everybody likes iOS. Many people love Windows Phone, but it's gone now. I'm sorry. So
that was my favorite phone.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. And I loved it as well. I mean, seriously. But the problem, of course, is that eventually those devices don't get updated. And then what? Are you going to carry it around? Are you going to work with it? And again, chances of you being one to be hacked is not that big. But if you want to take personal hygiene responsible, there's unfortunately not really another choice than, make sure that you got everything up to date.
Yeah.
And of course, you can say, oh, but I only have one email account on that. I'm only just calling one person. I'm only just texting with one app. I don't really need that, which is fine.
Yeah.
But that's how it starts.
It's a step.
Yeah. And then slowly you start having more apps in there still because, okay, I really can't go without this.
Yeah.
I really can't go without that. And before you know it, it becomes a stepping stone because you still needed that MFA device, which is that same phone, by the way, now unpatched with a 4-year-old operating system.
Yeah.
Are you going to run ahead with that? And of course you can say, I'm a developer. I don't see a lot of risk in there.
Yeah.
But your customer where you're developing for, or your boss might think differently about that.
Yeah.
Which is actually a great point to start talking about to your boss to say, hey, I need an up-to-date phone. I don't care. Maybe you do. Can you help me out? I mean, it's not like you have to be the developer, buying phones every time and making great waste.
Yeah.
It's the alternative is just basically talk about, okay, what do we really need? And if I need to be on standby, if I need MFA, can you help me out making sure I have a patched device? That might make the show a bit unpopular, that this becomes part of developers asking for new phones, and I'm very sorry about that. But,
no worries.
It's one of those things that makes it a bit harder.
But who's end responsible? Like me as a developer, I can make sure my personal hygiene is there. For example, I have all my devices up to date. I don't forward my emails or my meeting invites and everything. I lock my device when I go away. But when I still get hacked, is it then still my responsibility, or should the company have done kind of more to prevent me from that? That's kind of hard, I think, to place that blame within one single entity there.
That's really hard.
Yeah.
Let's start with that. And maybe we should start a disclaimer that we're both not legal experts. So whatever we're going to say out here, you can't use that, but you can use it to inspire yourself.
That's good.
So as part of a security team, you often get the question, are we going to bring your own device? Are we going to have managed devices? Are we going to do the beyond core magic? And there's a lot of work put into that to make sure that that actually works. It's not the same as just bringing your own device. So maybe we should stop putting that on the table in the first place, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
So let's start with bring your own device, because you had your phone, you wanted to enable MFA and be a good dev. I mean, seriously, that's good. That's really good to do that. But at some point, a company has to decide, given on what you're working on, do we put the trust upon him to take care of that? And do we do some legal stuff, as in you sign a contract that you take responsibility or whatever? Which is normally part of your onboarding contract, that you have certain responsibilities, blah, 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 etc. And many companies don't do that. They just say, forget about it, bring your own device, we'll see. And the moment they get hacked, they all of a sudden go, oh, what should we have done?
Yeah.
And that's hard, because at that point, you're a bit too late, because, like CBS started to, enroll devices at first to make sure that certain things are checked. The first thing that happened, that some developers and also other type of consultants weren't used to that. You were like, hey, but if you manage my device, can't you see more than just, where the email goes?
Yeah.
And depending on how that's managed, that might be true. So then all of a sudden it becomes very important. And if you really are that serious about what's being developed, maybe you need a second device. And then you as a dev have a problem, because now you're carrying around 2 of those massive bricks in your pants. And that, is that what you want? We don't really have the answer to that. Of course, this might be a great commercial for device management vendors to tell, like, we got the solution for you. And I'm sure there is a solution to that with a price. And then the question again, remember how we started talking about the risk appetite of your customer or your boss compared to yours?
Yeah.
This is where it starts conflicting. And there's not really a solution to that.
Yeah.
So who's to blame when it happens? Okay, if you have a really old phone, you got a lot of illegal apps running in there. Like a jailbroken iPhone 4, you want to play all games in the world on that, which you also downloaded from illegal app stores, and all of a sudden you got hacked. I think we can have a conversation, right? But the moment you just do being diligent, who's to blame?
Exactly.
That becomes very a difficult topic.
Yeah.
It really depends on the contractual blah, etc. But overall, I think the company's security team should have thought about this and already taken steps to make sure that your actions were monitored in the first place.
Yeah.
But also the step for the company to have such a monitoring in place brings a risk, because the MDA provider can also be hacked.
Exactly.
So if you have, as a hacker, you have access to the MDA environment, and you can do a lot more than just that's the nice spot to be, right? So if you have control over all the phones with one button press, you can wipe all the devices of a whole company. That's
you're there.
Of course, or encrypt them and ask for ransomware, of course, because that's how they make a lot of money, of course. But that's a different topic. But that step is also for a company difficult to make, because it's also not cheap, it's expensive. There is no free service, so that's also something you have to think about as the company. So from the other side, it's also, and I know we at Xebia now have one for Mac devices, for iPhones.
Yeah,
I'm not sure about Windows.
Yeah, we have for everything. We have something
also for Linux.
If required, we can set stuff up basically.
Yeah,
I think the most important thing to take away from this as a developer, is start to try to be diligent in what you do.
Yeah,
try to again separate work from private, like we already repeated many times in this episode, I think. And the next thing is talk to your boss.
Yeah,
talk about security. And if you don't like this, you could as well just say, hey, I think we might have a problem, dear security team. Would you be able to go from here?
Yeah.
Because being diligent can also be the signaler and then do a step away from this. Because we both know that we don't want, we like to make beautiful things. We don't like to talk and create PowerPoints and Excels the whole day. So, otherwise you would have come security guys or girls or whatever's. Just signal it. Take this home. Take this home to your company where you work for. Say, hey, how is this going on? You say we do BIOD, but what if my device gets hacked even though I do my best to patch it? Can you take it from here?
Yeah.
And we as developers will hear from you later. That's fine.
Yeah.
Because it's their concern. It shouldn't be. The only thing that should be yours really is that you did your best. And doing your best doesn't mean you buy the new iPhone every year to make sure that you get patched. That's not how this works.
Yeah.
Doing your best means that you didn't try to get weird illegal things in there that that might be tainted.
Yeah.
Doing your best may mean that you try to have an updated version of Android or iOS on your phone. And that should be good enough, to my opinion. And depending on your boss's opinion as a developer, that might be different.
Yeah.
But there's only so much you can do.
Yeah. It's hard. And I think I like the way my buddy Michel Zitman put it. He says awareness leads to accountability. And that also raises awareness. So once you're aware of, for example, personal hygiene, you're going to feel accountable to make it up to that standard. And then if you see, obviously, when you come in, your ass is already on the line, right? When you're investing and you put money out there, you know that money's there. That's a risk. But when you have a laptop and you have company assets, your ass is already on the line by default because you have access to a lot of things. And if you feel like, all right, this is just too much risk already, and I have done everything to put my kind of personal hygiene up to par, I love that you say just signal it. Right? Because then it's out of your hands. You can only do so much. And then we need to talk about, okay, what is that company security level? What should it be? How much risk should everyone be able to have? And is it up to standard, yes or no? And what can we do to make sure we get it up to par there as well? What do you guys do when you come in and a company says, well, it's not up to standard. People all are doing their personal hygiene, but there's a mismatch in kind of what people think they should do and what the company thinks they should do, because you already laid it out. That's probably why you got hired in the first place, to kind of sniff around and get it up to standard. What's kind of your first steps you take usually?
Well, the fun part, when I join a new project, you always get those accounts.
Yeah.
So you get an email address, you get an email, you get a password, you get access to Slack, you get access to Jira and everything.
Yeah.
And then the first thing I ask is, okay, suppose I'm leaving tomorrow. What are your steps? And then most of the time they say, oh, we don't have any steps because people leave, but we have Slack, but Slack is not, that's no centralized login. So we have to remove you.
Yeah.
Okay, who's doing that? And then it turns out that if you ask again and again, and it turns out that you never get removed. It's like you leave the Slack channel, but you still have access. So if you probably try your old Slack accounts, they will probably work.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing I'm always interested in. How does it work? When I leave, what happens? And then you find out that a lot of times, and then they start thinking, well, okay, we have to do something. And then you just have to have a simple procedure. Like we have this account, and we have to disable you. Or if you have it centralized, which is most common these days, but still Slack and all the other tools are out there. So it's not working in that way. So that's why I also, the company also has a set of tools. Like some companies use the full Google suite. Some companies like ours use the Microsoft suite. And I also find it interesting that people, they have a preference to use Dropbox, for example.
Yeah.
And then they start sending Dropbox links around with customer data on it because they are using Dropbox, they are used to it.
Yeah.
And I think, no, but that's not what the company is using. Yet you shared that information on a Dropbox account, which you might have created in the context of that company.
Yeah.
But once you leave, nobody knows that information is on that Dropbox account because they are not aware that you have some shadow IT beside because you were using those tools and they don't know about that. So that's what Jeroen just pointed out. If you want to use some tools, please talk to the people and but I'm used to using these tools and see there are advantages of using, like for example, Miro is taking a big boost at the moment.
Absolutely.
So developers start using it. That's how Miro plugged it. So they target developers and they see, oh look, you can make nice graphs and all kinds of cool things. Presentations is also something I see a lot go. But most of the time, we are still using PowerPoint.
Mm-hmm.
Miro is not something we have an account for or your company has. So what are you doing? You're putting data from your customer inside a presentation and you put it on Miro. And then you leave, but that's your Miro account. Or you created it for your team. You still have access to it.
Yeah.
And the company, who are they don't know that you still have that and you posted it on the Miro account. So yeah, that's what Jeroen mentioned. Just talk to and then maybe there's a good use case for start using Miro, and then you get an account, and then most of the time it comes to billing, and then it becomes an interesting discussion, I would say, because then you say no, we have the Microsoft suite, so we don't really want this, but that's something you have to be aware of, that there are limits in what you can do.
Yeah.
It's not up to the developer to use the most cool tools in that area. So that's how I normally start, just asking what happens when I leave. That question is almost always asked. We don't know.
Yeah, I love that because it's the way you laid it out. It doesn't have to be a lot in place to actually have that up to par, right? Mm-hmm. Just needs to be a little bit of awareness and a procedure to take down the
simple
account.
like we have this, the Jira, remove him, and like just a simple, can be 10 bullet points. Like somebody leaves, goes an email, I'm leaving. Okay, this somebody just does all the steps.
Yeah,
but then becomes a little bit more difficult, but most of the time they're not the same people are dealing with the account, so not everybody is admin within the same, and that also is something which grows. And then but he is admin of that. Oh, then I have to ask him, and he said no, I'm no longer the admin. He's the admin, and then you have to go to talk to a lot of people before you can remove somebody. So that's interesting. Also, I find that question very interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Jeroen, any thoughts?
So next to leaving, I always ask, what do you see happening? So can you see our activity? Can you see that we commit stuff? Can you see us creating projects? Can you see me exfiltrating your secrets for fun, shits and giggle and tell you in your face what it is? So we have to, rotate them.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not doing that on my first day to make that much work for everybody, but showing the fact that there's a path, and then trying to see if somebody saw me entering that path, not completing it, but at least, kindly scratching the surface.
Exactly.
That's always a good starter, because that make people realize hey, if this is risky, we as security people should be able to see this, because this is value to us as a company.
Yeah.
And then of course I go my ways and do the stuff I have to do. But at the other end, what also helps is asking about silly questions, as in, this is a bit silly from a development perspective, but if you start asking, what's your risk appetite, as in how afraid are you of my source code being leaked from my computer, or from Git or whatever, can I open source this tool we're working on right now? And then all of a sudden, especially for instance, that can we open source this, because you know how cool it is to work in open source software. It helps me, it helps you, it helps everybody. Then there's this panic mode. It's like, if the guys are serious about that, that's not where this is for. And then you can turn around the conversation and talk about risk. And then it's always a good step because it's everybody's responsibility, right? As for you as a developer as well, to the security people you're talking to. But still, it's the most important thing is basically to start that conversation.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how far you can take it along with them, as long as somebody takes it.
Yeah. Who do you have that conversation with initially? Because you say, can you see me scratching the surface and getting to stuff I don't need to? Do you have that?
The security people, basically.
Okay.
And if there's no security people, then we have to ask each other as developers, as in, hey, are we okay with what we're seeing from each other? So it's a larger company, like if you got like, you see a lot at our customers, if you have like, well, at least 60 people or more, there's always the security person running around. And luckily, there's always the CISO guy or whatever, and you can ask questions to him or her. But if you're in a really small team and everybody should take security responsibly, you just start chatting to your team as in, hey, how are we okay with this? And that's often very silly, because then people often first start like, yeah, but why do you ask that? Because you should have taken care of that. And the fact that that's the response shows that we actually already have something to start with.
Exactly.
Which is great. And at some point, people will either start frowning or continue thinking you're asking silly questions, which is a great signal, because that means you're coming somewhere where this is already going on.
Yeah.
But it could also be, why you're asking this, because this is stupid. How bad can it be that all the code is on a public repo? Then I would say, okay, can I make this repo then public, because that's easy committing for me on my own account. And if then the boss says no, then at least we got this fire starter again. You just need some sort of fire starter, and it really depends on the company, the company's culture, what the best thing might be to start with. Really.
Yeah, that's hard figuring it out, I think, for a company initially, which might be why they get to a certain point where they've already gone too far, and then the personal hygiene as they want it is already so far down the drain that they need to catch up on it. Yeah. Right. I think that's how that might go. What I'm wondering is, so I'm a software engineer, right? I have no clue what I want to do a few years down the line. I just had a chat with Michel Zitman, and we talked about financial operations. He calls it financial management, financial cloud management. And you have a certain set of skills to be able to fulfill that kind of new specialism. What are those skills for kind of security? Because you do need to know quite a lot, at least that's how it seems to me.
I think if you are as a developer, I think you have to look at it like in the past. When I started working, I was at a company, did some development, and then after 6 weeks, we didn't call it sprints then, but it was the end of the iteration, and then everything went to testing, and then the test department went on and started testing the application, what you have built. Of course, you've clicked through it for like the UI. Is it working? Is it working? Okay, fine, good enough. Check it in. And then 6 weeks. And then we found out that that's not really, because the cycles are way too big, because you get something which you built more than 8 weeks ago. You get a bug by the test department. This is not working. Okay, you have to fix it. So then we thought, okay, this is a good idea to merge those worlds together. So now we as developers, we think about testing. We write test cases. We have unit tests. And we also... functional testing is also part of it, but you work together with the test specialist, how that works. And the name of the role is different in different companies. But he comes up with, this is what we need to test. And then you write some test cases, but he is the main guy giving you the input. You have to look at this one, you have to look at this. And if you change this over there, probably it will fill over here as well. So can you add a test case for that as well? Because he has the knowledge about how the whole application works together. And you are probably working on one microservice and you're not aware that something else goes into a CRM system, and he is aware of that. So that's most of the time where their knowledge comes into play. I think the same holds for security. Like security is almost seen, that's not my job as a developer. That's security, and they are sitting over there, and they always say no, and that's how developers view. I'm not saying it's today, but in the past it was like that. So it was a department far away in the building, in the corner, and they always said, no, you can't use this, you can't do this, and stuff like that. So I think that's also happening now at the moment, as you as a developer, same as we did with testing. Well, in the beginning, I didn't know anything about testing. Like you had to learn, like, how do you write good unit tests? How do you do that? And it's the same with security. And I think where the security people come into play is when they point you, it's like, hey, you're developing something with authentication. Can you please add a test case for this and this and this? Because I know from the past that we had issues with that, and that's what we need to do. And then you can add tests as well, which run as part of your build. And then that's the ideal world. And I'm not saying that you all, same with testing, it doesn't go. So bugs are found in production, right? So yeah, that's how it works. And then because there's data and you didn't anticipate it, that a user would do it, something like that. But it's the same with security, is that we have to work together to make it work. And you don't have to have all the knowledge, but you can ask the security guys, hey, how does this work? How does an SQL injection work? Do I need to test for that? Are there some tools I can use? Is that easily, can we do that? Can we scan a website in an easy way? And then that's where the discussion starts, and then it moves closer together. And then the team knows more about the subject, and they can come up with, hey, we have to think about this. We have to think about this. And there are there are guides which you can during a code review, you can add like in secure development lifecycle. You have Microsoft, you have RSVS from OWASP, you have all kinds of lists of things. If you develop something in this area, please focus on this. And you can make it part of your own code review with the help of the security team. Because I think the same as where the tester has the knowledge, security has the knowledge about how that can be misused. But you can help each other to make it a better product. And that's where I think most of the time it's seen as, oh, I have to know everything about security. No, that's not the case. Like it's just, you need to know just enough to ask somebody a question. Hey, do I need to think about this? And how do you see this? And the conversation needs to happen. And that's sometimes it's not happening, I guess.
Yeah. And of course, from there onward, you can grow, right? I mean, this is where you start.
Yeah.
And then from then, of course, that part forward, there's basically two routes. One route is really knowing your stack by heart, where you're programming on. For instance, if you're doing Kotlin or Scala or Java on a JVM, it's great that you know which syntactic sugar you can use to make something pretty.
Yeah.
But it's the important thing that happens behind that you understand what's happening. If you're an avid Go programmer, the same thing holds over there. Or if you're a .NET consumer, same thing happens over there. If you're a .NET developer, I mean, of course, sorry, but you're consuming the .NET framework, try to understand what's happening over there. And go in depth. Because that way you can understand why something is becoming a bug or a security bug. So that's one way. That's really focusing you on your area of expertise, and you can become more of a security specialist over there.
Yeah.
It can also happen later on to review other people's code, help them to understand why this is a good or a bad idea in general.
Yeah.
And the in-depth and the broad version basically is, while you're having that conversation with security, start thinking about, hey, you got the MESVS and the ASVS, for instance. Why are they there? Why are these requirements there? What does that mean? And what you in fact are asking yourself, what could possibly go wrong?
Exactly.
And what could possibly go wrong is the main question in security. The rest really is a detailed version of that mostly, or more or less something like, what does the stakeholder really want from me and how can I sustain in that? But that's in every development aspect, right? For every stakeholder, it doesn't really matter. And from there on, you can broaden your horizon. Start working with those unit tests not mentioned, or start working with automation tools. There's a bunch of them, or even work at one of those automation tools. Try to add test cases and tests for it, because you've seen that this might have been a bug in the history of your program, basically. And that way you can slowly grow, basically. And then, well, to be honest, security has many different roles. You got these people that do risk management. They mostly think about what could possibly go wrong and how can we make that the amount of stuff still going wrong to a level that we're feeling okay with that, or that our financial stakeholders are okay with that. So that's more about, broadening your horizon, what could possibly go wrong. You got your offensive testers or your defenders to make better security controls or better payloads to, break stuff. Hey, in that case, for instance, having that in-depth knowledge about your stack can greatly help to, contribute to proper payloads or contribute to proper defending tools.
Yeah.
That way you can go everywhere. And I've seen a lot of security people move from one area to the other area depending on what they like. But it takes time to do that right. Similar, like if you start with a new version of Spring Boot, it takes time to learn how the new framework works and what's the difference, what the new quirks are, and how to work with that properly.
Yeah.
Similar with the different security areas. And most important thing, do what you like, because the Department of No often has this passion about something and the big fear of something else. And when you have the big fear behind you, and not because you like it, you want to get somewhere, but you're more, breaking in a way because of fear instead of because you understand the idea of what's acceptable risk, you just don't do it. It's probably not your job. Similar, like you don't. Of course, this is. I don't want to say that a doctor has a similar risk appetite as we have because they, they protect our lives. We just protect code.
Yeah.
Of course, medical devices apart, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
But I don't think everybody wants to be a surgeon. Similar, like not everybody wants to become a security dude. And similar in building areas, not everybody wants to become a building inspector. Some people just love being carpenters.
Yeah.
So what's really important, do something because you love it and not because you're afraid of what you're doing. Of course, it's good to know that it's your turn, your ass is on the line because you want to do security right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, only do it because you're passionate about it. Because it means, similar like developing, you'll spend private time learning about stuff that you have to learn.
Yeah.
Because it evolves, similar like your development stuff. So that's really, you have your depth, you have your broad, the depth and the breadth type of security evolution. But at the same time, it always comes down to make sure you really love it.
Yeah.
Because it will take some of your private time if you want to do this right.
But for the security people, the other way around is that I find it very interesting that two things about security. The tooling we just talked about, most of the tooling is very expensive, and two, the option is it's very technical and it's horrible to use. It's just there's nothing in between. Like we have code review tools and there are some security checks. They are too limited. Okay, you have to have another tool. And that costs then 10,000 per license or something per CPU. I'm not. The prices are horrible because of course, that's how it works because that's how the company sell. The other hand, there's one thing the security team also needs to be aware of is that when a security incident happens, they have to share the details with the teams. And what happens most of the time when a security incident happens, and I know that you have to leave out some of the personal details about what happened, what kind of person was involved. Yeah. But there is like the screen goes down from security office and they are sitting like the security incident happened. Now we have to look and the developers are like, okay, what can we do? Because can we help in any way? And no, everything goes down. They are not reachable anymore. There's a security incident and they have to fix it.
Like lockdown.
And then they ask like, and then they say, and then they come back, no, it's fixed. Oh. And then there's no feedback to the team. So the team doesn't know, was it my mistake? Was it our mistake? Yeah. Did we miss something? Can we improve our process to prevent this in the future? No. And that's most of the things I see. That's I think that it has to be a two-way. So you have to involve the developers and they have to involve the security guy. But the other way around is also important, that the feedback cycle is two ways and not just one way. And if something bad happens, you have to explain that something bad happens. So everybody learns from it, not only the security team, which closes the issue and said, well, nothing to see here, move on. That's sometimes I find it interesting that you don't get any of the details. I find it very strange. Sometimes.
It all comes down to that awareness, right? And if you're not enabling other people to be aware of things that have happened, it might happen again in the future.
Yes, indeed.
Especially if they're not going to be informed that they were the cause, right? It's interesting. I've never seen that happen. Let me rephrase that. I don't know. I wasn't aware that a security incident to that degree actually happened. And because I'm not aware, I don't know if it happened or if I was informed either.
Things happen, like in person. Of course, things go wrong. Something goes. You get a phishing email or whatever. That's not the most important. But if something really happens with the software you're building, you have to involve the developers and say, "Hey, this happened. Maybe it's not their mistake. It was an infrastructure." Then you have the discussion with your SRE team. Hey, we need to do something about this because we now have this security incident. How can we prevent it in the future? Yeah, and that's the feedback cycle is sometimes not there, and that's. For me, it's annoying because I've been on I've been on both sides. So I've been a part of the security team, and now I'm a developer again. And you're missing the. So I try to be open, and then you get the no, you can't say anything about it. So depending on what we find, we will talk to the team and talk to the team. And I'm like, okay, fine with me, but it doesn't give you because I've been on both sides, and it's not the best feeling you can have. It's
that learning opportunity that you're kind of missing then, right? Which is such a shame that when it actually happens, just inform everyone and make sure it doesn't happen, right? That's step number one. True. Yeah, I love that. One of the things you mentioned actually was a trigger for me in that people start using their own stuff for the stuff that they like, right? You're talking about different kind of email providers or even the Miro example you gave. And you also give the solution as in talk to your company and make sure it is within the company's organization and infrastructure. But the thing that triggered me was the span of control of people is just growing, right? It's digitalization. Now even with the cloud, I can click whatever I want, and I can open whatever I want, and the credit card is just gonna, that bill is gonna keep growing.
Yes.
But the span of control is growing. Like how security, it should be evolving with it, right? It should be growing with it and kind of accommodating for these kind of newer things that we're facing now. What have you guys? Let me rephrase that. What have you guys seen so far?
So right now I am part of a security team, and luckily we're one of the teams that do involve the teams. As in, hey, for instance, we had a security bug where something was too open in terms of everybody in a certain cloud account could do certain actions. Yeah. So we involved the SRE team as in, hey, we could try to plug this hole ourselves, but can you please help us because we're in trouble? Yeah. I believe we're in trouble. And then later on, that same SRE team came abundantly back as in, hey, did you know we had a similar problem over there and over there and over there and over there? And before we knew, we thought we just had one incident, and that became like a cluster incident. Wanted to use another word there, of course, but yeah, no, it's public. That was really that's really interesting because you see it also with developers, and at the same time, if it comes to that learning, that feedback. You also get then feedback from the developers, and you learn a lot from that because you thought you thought you understood the new stack, but then there was this crazy new release, and that crazy new release had a new feature. The developer took his own time to get to know that, and he starts using that, and another developer took that same time to be able to work with the new stack, and then they came like, hey, we see this used everywhere, and it's not really working, because now we can do this and this and that in our testing environment. Can we do that in production? Can you check it for us? And then we check that, and we get, well, here's another incident. So that's how that evolves. But if it comes to the span of control, for instance, Miro is a great example. It's very easy to create your own personal boards and to share that. Yeah. And to share it with everybody without a password, because that's convenient. And I understand that. I respect that.
It's basically the same. It will go like just to elaborate. Zoom had the same thing. Yeah. Zoom was easy, no password. And then there was that whole incident where somebody logged into where he shouldn't log in and shouldn't be part of that conference. And I think Miro will go to the exact same thing. They made it simple for people to use because they want to have exposure. And now they will tighten the security because this is not okay. Yeah, because it's just, you can share a link and then it's so open that you don't even see that it's that open. Yeah.
So what we did was basically search out everything that we could find in terms of Miro boards that were used at the company, and we had conversations with different teams how are you using it, and then we had this large list of abundant sharers, because you could say offenders or whatever, but then you also go to the negative no tone. But exactly. It's just, these people did their utterly best to speed stuff up. Yeah. And they might have speeded it up just a bit too much. Yep. So we sent an email to all of them saying, hey, we found the following boards. Can you please close it down? And then during various meetings that weren't even about this, people started asking, and we were just completely transparent about it, saying, hey, this is what happened. This is how you can prevent that. And then we also had public talks about that. And that way you can address it to everybody, because there's no way we're going to find every Miro board. Yeah. That's also not our, well, some people argue that's our job, but I hope I have different things to do than only hitting Miro boards. Yeah. And that way we speed up the cycle. But overall, I should really say, it's I agree. It's the developers have the control. And all we can do is help as long as we know. Yeah. And the other way around as well, developers can help themselves with, again, the hygiene if they know. Yeah.
I love that you mentioned, like, it's just about acknowledgement, right? And also awareness. If you're saying, listen, I know we're working towards the same goal, right? And this Miro thing might actually be a good thing, but then let's incorporate it within our company cycle, right? That's the key that sometimes is missing. Yeah. You're not saying, no, what you're doing is wrong. Absolutely not. It's wrong in the way that we're doing it, right? We need to do it the right way. Then we can do it. And if it's actually that valuable asset, then let's use it. Why not, right? We're still trying to do this thing together and move towards that goal. Yeah. Do you still get that kind of lashback? Because you do come across as kind of we need to pump the brakes just a little bit and do the thing right. And people might construe that and in a wrong way. I guess.
Yeah. So what we need sometimes, Miro is actually a good example. One of the customers say, well, maybe we just need a license.
Exactly.
You know? So you can actually have your place, share it with all the colleagues, have teams involved in everything.
Yeah.
And then legally we're also okay because, hey, this is a commercial product, man. It's not like a free beer or something. People
Exactly.
actually work to create this. Miro is a company. People need to get fruit from that. So maybe, we should do this right. And we did it right as fast as we could.
Yeah.
And that helped. And of course, you got your compliance questionnaires like, hey, do you protect our data in a way that everybody's okay with this? And these type of things. And that might, take a little bit of a hurdle in the process, which by being transparent about the fact that you have to do that together and that you're in the process and that people just have to wait a little longer, but we're doing our utterly best to make sure you can have it, basically. It actually often gives, sometimes lashback as in, oh, there's security again. Oh, you need to wait a week. But a lot of people actually go like, hey, but that means you're going to take care of everything, right?
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, we're actually going to have an admin for that. And it's going to be integrated in the AD. You don't have to do squat. It's going to be, SSO, transparent, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then they're like, so it's going to be convenient. Like, yeah, exactly. That's the idea. Okay. Oh, so I no longer have to admin my boards. No, not really. Okay. But you do have to migrate them. But yeah, that actually helps. But it needs lashback. It differs per person, really.
Yeah.
And if you're not patient as a developer waiting for the tester dude to help you to refine the stories, or your PO is 2 minutes later, you're already wanting to drag him across the camera because you want him in now because you want to know what you have to work on.
Yeah.
Then you possibly have issues with security saying, please wait a few days and we'll get back about this.
Yeah, which makes sense.
But sometimes there's tooling you just have to say no. And because no company has infinite budget. You have to choose. If some people like Miro and other people like other type of whiteboarding applications, the fact that we pay you as a developer doesn't mean we can pay every company for every product. Apparently.
Exactly.
At least that's what my boss always says then. My client tells me as in, hey, we selected this. Why do you want to select that? So yeah, you have to make choices. And that's the harder part.
Yeah, I get that. It's all about that combination of, I guess, awareness and also convenience, right? I love the example that you gave that, hey, we can actually make this more convenient for everyone by doing it the right way, right? So it's not just convenient for you, but for everyone this time. But just let us do it that way then as well. And you do need to kind of migrate your stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
I love that example. Guys, thank you a lot for coming on. I love talking to you. And I think this is a great example of what we can do again then.
Yeah.
The security is broad. We can chat for a whole another hour, I feel like.
Yeah. You can do more technical stuff.
Cool.
Definitely. Will be awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Nanne Baars, Jeroen Willemsen. That's it, everyone.
Beyond Coding. From your sponsors, Zebia, creating digital leaders.